First Person Advisors is now a subsidiary of NFP, the fifth largest insurance broker in the world, combining local expertise with access to global capabilities and solutions. Learn more at firstpersonadvisors.com.
That's the sound of hail, one of Jeff Simmons' earliest memories. It wiped out the grape crop on his family's farm in upstate New York. Life on the farm shaped Jeff Simmons, led him to a career that fit perfectly with his passion for nature and animals.
For us, it's in the center of our business. It's about animals. Healthy animals are essential. We at Elanco are part of a coalition, farmers, veterinarians, and many others that believe healthy animals are the X factor. They are the unexpected, game-changing variable that will unlock solutions.
Elanco Animal Health President and CEO Jeff Simmons on bridging the gap between what consumers want, what animals need, and preserving the environment. Get to know him on this edition of the Business and Beyond podcast. Hello and welcome to the Business and Beyond podcast, presented by PNC. I'm Gary Deck. Jeff Simmons' affinity for animals really goes back to his days growing up on his parents' farm in the Finger Lakes region of upstate New York. Family started out on the dairy side of farming, but switched to growing grapes, which helped create juices, jams, and jellies for one of the most recognizable brands in the country, Welch's. Simmons took his passion for animals and nature to Cornell University. He majored in business administration management and agriculture. He eventually wound up in Indiana at Elanco Animal Health, where he spent the past decade as president and CEO. During his tenure, the company has quadrupled in size, completed nearly 15 acquisitions, and built 5 new businesses. And I'm pleased to be joined on the podcast this week by Elanco CEO Jeff Simmons. Jeff, really appreciate you taking the time to join us. How are you?
I am great, Gary. Thank you. Thanks for all you do for Indiana business and making us all better leaders. So a great opportunity here to spend some time with you.
Well, I appreciate that very much. And to say you've had a lot going on at Elanco is an understatement over the past couple of years. Just an amazing string of things happening at Elanco with huge impact, obviously on the company, but also on the state of Indiana. First of all, hopefully we're coming out of this pandemic now. How have you and the company, in your view, kind of fared through this very challenging period of the pandemic?
Yeah, I think a couple things. I mean, right, we're going to look back on this as historical, and I think even from a leadership perspective, we went into it leaning into it. We locked down the Bayer deal and the financing for the deal literally days before COVID hit us.
Yeah.
And so we had to do the industry's largest acquisition, converging these two, companies and bringing them together virtually. If you told me we were going to do that from our offices at home, I'd have told you that was impossible. I think the second thing, though, is we saw, and you saw this too, Gary, is the impact that animals. So we have a slogan that says, by making animals' lives better, we make life better. We saw meat cases empty when COVID hit. We saw animal shelters empty. Everybody got a dog or got a second dog or a cat. And so we saw, all of us in Elanco saw the importance of what we do when the world had its backs to the wall. Animals matter. Protein in pets matter. And so food and companionship enriching life, we saw it. And I think it refired us, in our why as we leaned into this pandemic, having to pull off what seemed like an impossible putting Bayer and Elanco together. And I can say it's done. We're standing this thing up and we're winning. We're turning in a very good year.
Yeah. So many people know the Elanco name here in Indiana, but I don't know if people truly appreciate what Elanco has become, especially with this Bayer acquisition. Give people an idea of what has been created now by that combination, and what Elanco is today.
Yeah. So, a real credit I say to, anytime I talk about Elanco, I start with Eli Lilly. It's in our name. Elanco stands for Eli Lilly and Company. We wouldn't be where we are. They believed in us back in that time when we became a business unit in 2007 or so, and the journey began. And we started Lilly Companion Animal Care with Prozac as a drug that helped with separation anxiety. So Lilly, and then our people. I just mentioned our people are passionate, Gary. These are people that love livestock, love pets, veterinarians, farm backgrounded people. So the depth of wanting to be here, this is their company. And these are their customers. And I think that those are the key ingredients. So what we've done with Bayer and Elanco is we've got one of the only companies in the world that can reach the world's animals. Elanco, over 150 countries, 19 species of animals that we're making their lives better. Cats and dogs are obvious, but how about tilapia in China, the water buffalo in India, to salmon in Chile, to cats in Seattle? We cover the gamut. And by doing that, what do we do? And what we're going to do on the west side of Indianapolis, this new headquarters, is it's going to be a campus for us and our partners, as we call it, the epicenter to where we then can reach the world's animals. So if you have a new product or you have a device or you're in telemedicine, we can help you with SAP, regulatory, sales, supply chain, reach the world's animals.
Yeah, it is an amazing story. And you mentioned this new campus, which I think the word, transformational sometimes is overused, but, I think this development in the old GM stamping plant site along the White River, west side of downtown Indianapolis, has the opportunity to transform certainly that area. Jeff, talk about this investment. As I remember, about a $300 million announcement, global headquarters along the banks of the White River, a campus. Give us the thumbnail description of what ultimately this is going to look like.
Yeah, well, a credit to, the state and the city. I mean, the mayor and the governor and all the officials and the leaders, private, nonprofit. And look, we went to other states. We went to other places. We spent days touring, and it made me a very, very proud Hoosier to say, look, this is a state that wants to work together and is determined to make our state not only a great place to work, and a state that does work, I think is our slogan, but one actually that collaborates and is determined to be a leader. And they saw and they caught the vision of being a leader in animals. We want to be one of the cornerstones in this city with healthcare and with sports and everything else. We want animals to be that. And so on the west side, the vision is we want to transform it. If you fly over Indianapolis, there's not a whole lot. I was at the zoo yesterday, meeting with the president of the zoo and talking about with Robert what we're going to do on the west side of Indianapolis. We're going to build a campus. It's going to be a post-COVID campus to where it's going to be a destination for all employees all over the world. But if it's Fishers or Mass Ave, hey, it's better to come to the campus. So a lot of open space, not just laboratories and administrative, but it's going to be places where we can create an experience for employees and for customers. And we're going to bring a lot of the major animal conventions and customer events to Indianapolis as well, and combine it with the complements of a convention city that Indianapolis has.
Yeah, and you touched on it there, but so much of the focus and so much of this campus is about the need to attract and keep talent, right?
It is. And, some of that comes with, well, why come to Indianapolis? And, all the great things of, if you want rural America, in 20 minutes, you can be in rural America and have a barn and horses. You can be on a downtown Indianapolis, Fountain Square, Mass Ave. We've got a lot of employees there, or in one of the great suburbs. I mean, that's one. But look at our all the partnerships from IU and Purdue to, a lot of the great partnerships, CICP, Mitch Frazier and Agronovis, the ability to bring this together. And then, lastly, if all the employees voted, they would have picked this site versus others because of the community on the west side. We want to join the community. We want to be part. That community is connected to that GM stamping plant. We want to replace that. But what we want to do is continue to keep the connection that they have with the 400 or so neighbors that we now have in the west side.
Yeah, and your investment too, as you talked about it goes beyond Indianapolis and to other areas of the state. Actually, my hometown of Clinton, Indiana, I know they're very excited about that with the Elanco operation that's there.
Yeah, we one of the largest facilities, and again, I think one of the lead employers in Vermilion County, as well as we have been in Hancock. And so we'll continue to do that and continue to build as we grow and even look at ways to bring manufacturing and other things more and more to the state.
Yeah. As you look, Jeff, I know you're very passionate about efforts and the need to feed the world and the challenges that face the globe going forward. And you really feel, I know that Elanco is and will continue to play a key role in that. But you think Indiana is really positioned to play a key role in that whole equation of feeding the globe?
Yes, I do. And I just recently had an engagement with both the governor as well as Secretary Chambers, our economic secretary, with a strong vision, his 5 E's. And when I think about entrepreneurship and energy and engagement, I'll just give you a couple examples. You highlighted in the opening what I call the triangle of opportunity. The top is give consumers what they want and give animals what they need and use less environment. In the center of that is the Elanco on our livestock side business model. So, how do we continue? We've helped bring 25 candidates into our pipeline to remove human-used antibiotics for growth promotion in animals. We've been a leader. We spoke at the White House in 2012, and I can say we've helped do that. At the same time, though, when a consumer wants something or it's been labeled that way, it doesn't necessarily mean the animal. We've got, healthy animals make great, healthy food. And so the importance of being able to say, we got to bring vaccines and enzymes or, non-human antibiotics by animal in a very prudent used way by veterinarians to keep animals healthy. At the same time, my last thing that I'm most excited about that our team, Colleen Decker, that's in our communications, to a lot of others that have, key people on our science side, is how we can reduce methane. And that's the way we can cool the climate. So very quick, greenhouse gases, there's carbon and there's methane. Carbon lasts 1,000 years. That's fine for the long term. But how we cool the climate in the next 9 years, it's actually making animals healthy and impacting and reducing methane from animals. And actually farmers can get credits from other industries and make money. There's dairy farmers in Indiana today making as much off the environment from credits and reducing methane than they are on milk. So watch our industry help cool the climate this decade. And we can take you to farms today in Indiana that are already doing that. We will help lead that and drive for our customers that direction.
Yeah, what's the biggest challenge? I'm sure there are several, but in your view, as you look to the future, to doing the things you'd like to see happen at Elanco and elsewhere across the industry, what's the biggest challenge? Is there one that really stands out?
Well, it's a few. I think the first is people, right? I mean, it's right people in the right place. This great resignation that's happening to say, I can live in Anderson, Indiana and work for someone in China. I think that there's a new level field on talent, and the war on talent is a whole nother game. So look, I mean, for all of us, is we got to even get right sized and get right people in right places and get the right talent to do what I just described. We've got lots of these challenges like the environment and others that are big opportunities. It's all about people. It's unlocking those opportunities and then executing against them, bringing a new product, getting a supply chain. So to me, I think the game changed the last 24 months on talent. And so the companies that can adapt and separate themselves and show a bigger purpose, that's Elanco's calling. We're going to cool the climate. We're going to help stop obesity with more protein in a more affordable way. And hey, we're going to impact the anxiety that's rising in this world by companions, pets, living longer, healthier lives. So I think you need a calling. So talent's one. Two, I think that's really important is, look, innovation matters. So regulatory bodies and bringing innovation, just like an Eli Lilly or a Cummins, just like us, you've got to innovate and you've got to stay ahead. You got to have good IP and you've got to innovate. Those would be two things that I would say, if we get the people right, and we get the innovation right, the rest is an execution story.
Yeah. You can tell Jeff Simmons is a very passionate guy about his business and about global affairs as well. Where did that passion come from? We'll talk a little bit about that. Growing up in upstate New York, his path to Elanco and Indiana, that and much more when the Business and Beyond podcast returns.
First Person Advisors is now a subsidiary of National Financial Partners, the fifth largest insurance broker and consultant in the world. Develop your total reward strategies all in one place with the combination of First Person's local expertise and NFP's global resources and integrated solutions. Learn more at firstpersonadvisors.com.
Welcome back to the Business and Beyond podcast presented by PNC. My guest this week is Jeff Simmons, the president and CEO at Elanco Animal Health. And Jeff, so much again going on with the company. I think your story is interesting. You've been with Elanco now for 32 years, for the 3 decades. You have seen and led amazing change at the company. Think back to your arrival here, because Elanco was, a unit essentially of the Eli Lilly and Company. Think back to those early days and what it was like when you first arrived here.
Yeah, I came here in April of 1989, a fresh graduate out of Cornell, a farm boy from upstate New York, and my dad always had a principle for all of us kids: you had to lead the family business for 2 years. And so, through the interviewing process, I got selected to come to Indianapolis and as a final candidate. And I remember distinctly on a payphone in the old Indianapolis airport calling my dad after the interviews and recalling 2 things. Hey, first of all, it's not Elanco, it's Elanco. and then I said to him, hey, they laugh a lot in the hallways and they talk like it's their own company. And I remember visiting that Lilly corporate site, and the Elanco people, they loved what they do. Well, today, Gary, we call that culture. Mm-hmm. And the other is they would say, well, my product and my customers out of all the people I interviewed with Welch's and Gallo and all these companies, I never saw that. Today, 32 years later, why I selected this company and why I'm here and why I love the people so much, they're my friends, deep friends, is it's all about a culture. We don't take ourselves too seriously. There's humility. You keep the customer bigger than you, the cause, the company bigger than you. We don't need parking spots and parking garages and doors on our offices. Stay small. And 2 is it's all about, ownership. Own this thing. Own our destination. Don't let the outside change faster than the inside. And that was the story back in the 80s. And I will say, I remember 1990s, we had 3 big products. Brendan Fox was the president. And we were going to get 3 big products and they didn't come. BST, Rumensin Dairy, and another compound. And all of them didn't happen. And I remember him standing up on this pedestal in the Lilly Center with all of us sitting there. And he said, we're going to grow this business. We're going to innovate without products. And we grew that whole decade. And it taught me to say, you can't be dependent on one thing. But the power of, what's changed the world? Can a small group of people change the world? Absolutely. It's the only thing that has. And that's a lot of the story of Elanco and the blessing I've had to be able to work in that kind of a culture.
Yeah, I know you've been impacted by a number of leaders there. John Lecklatter, former CEO at Lilly, I know is someone that you've had a great relationship with over the years.
Yeah, John was, I don't know if the whole city realizes and still continues to have an impact. One of the greatest leaders I've ever been around. He came out here to Greenfield in December of 2007 and asked me to jump in and be one of the heads of one of his 5 business units at the time. And he was, I think, one of the first people. I think he wrote a Fortune article then about, the animal health business is a people business. And he got the vision of protein before maybe anyone else, and how it even complemented an insulin when it talked about good nutrition. So he was visionary. He believed, and he's the one that stood in the front of the room when we made over a dozen acquisitions and really built an animal health business that actually was critical to his, overall Lilly vision of keeping Lilly strong as they built the pipeline that they're benefiting from today.
Yeah, you talked about earlier the Bayer acquisition. You also led the company's separation from Lilly into a standalone public company. That had to be an amazing experience, I imagine.
Yeah, Lilly made the choice, and Dave Ricks, as he came in, that, hey, we need to look at how we can optimize this for our shareholders and for the longevity of continued growth with Lilly. And we made that decision after looking at lots of options to go independent. We did that in September of 2018. And look, what we've done now is we've allowed our investors to lean in on animal health, if they want to invest in animal health as well as in pharma. Independence allows us to be very, very clear on, serving customers, what we do with our capital, and, what strategic choices. Got a tremendous board led by Dave Hoover that built the Ball Corporation here, very tied to DePaul and in the Muncie area. And Dave's our chairman and a lot of affiliation, and got Mike Harrington that came off from the Lilly Executive Committee as well.
Yeah, you mentioned your obvious passion for what you do. I assume that stems from your childhood and growing up on a farm that had to go all the way back to that point, right?
Yeah, so you said it in the opening, dairy industry, and my dad decided to very entrepreneurial guy that decided to jump into the grape business. We now today have between 600 and 700 acres of grapes in the upstate New York area. Still, my brother and I've got some vineyards with my wife as well back there. But one story I'll just share that you referenced, the hailstorm, is looking grapes. We for 10 years really struggled as we started that farm. And so I grew up first 10 years of my life as really, really poor and struggling. Every year matters. So you put 11 months of work in and you would build up debt. And then you're hoping in the month of September, you could harvest a crop to pay off the debt and have a little left over to keep going. And I remember distinctly, I was 7 years old, so 1974. And I remember that the worst thing you could have happen is, weeks before harvest, is you'd have the black clouds roll over the hills and have a hailstorm. And in 1974, we had a hailstorm, and I stood on the porch. I remember distinctly smelling the sulfur and the rain like it was yesterday, with my Chuck Taylor sneakers on the edge with my brother, my mom, and my dad. And the hail put our entire crop on the ground in about 20 minutes.
Wow.
My dad had tears running off his nose, and my brother looked up to my dad and said, "This isn't good for us as a dad."
Yeah.
Oh. And the next 10 seconds was powerful when he looked at us and said, "This is not about us. It's about them." And he pointed out to the barn, and under the shed, we had a lot of laborers and grapes. It's a lot of labor. And it immediately was kind of a moment for me to say, wow, I didn't know what it was called then, but now we call it servant leadership. It's all about people. It's all about taking care of your people. If you do that, the business will take care of itself. And that was a distinctful, but a lot of labor lessons, a lot of, struggling to make money, but the power of the bigger vision, all of those things came through. FFA also played a big connection here in Indianapolis, but FFA and sitting in Kansas City in the 80s, competing nationally for agribusinessman contest. And I remember distinctly hearing Zig Ziglar and experiencing a convention at that time in Kansas City and saying, wow, the world of agriculture is bigger than upstate New York.
You went on to college at Cornell, and that I assume is really where you got that passion kind of energized for what you wanted to do. How was college? Was that kind of set you on your career path?
Yeah, it really drew the understanding of business and finance and all of the commodities and all the aspects of the days of a little bit of an ag economist. Understanding the size and the movement of markets mattered. Had a big impact by a professor, Dave Cole, still very active out in the marketplace, but a very passionate guy. I watched a professor fill an auditorium every day, people that weren't even in his class. I watched one of the biggest impacts for me at Cornell, again, similar to John Leckletter, Dave Cole showed me the power of influence, communication, and casting a vision in agriculture, which, I still today credit him a lot for, bold, passionate communication to influence and move a room to a different place.
Yeah. So, yeah. Again, very passionate about culture and talent. I assume mentors, mentorships. You're very involved. I think you're one of the co-founders, right, of Edge Mentoring.
Yeah. We started Edge Mentoring quite some time ago, more than a decade ago. And again, I think that came from the learning. I sat one day at the end of the year, about this time of the year, looking back and realizing that some of my best years were when I had people around me that were mentoring me and influencing me. And whether that's in or outside of the company, and a lot of mentors in Elanco, but also people in Lilly and people outside. And that started, what I decided was reach out. We started with 3 young men, unrelated, on a conference call every other Thursday night. And today, Edge, with a lot of leadership and great people, has now become one of the fastest growing mentoring organizations. We're in about 45 states. We've launched not just Edge groups like that, but Edge at Work, and also in partnership with Butler University and some major Edge events. Last week, we had an Edge event for women leaders. Over 300 in Indianapolis got together talking about, how they can continue to develop and shape the future of this state.
What do you think the impact of that? Because it is fascinating. I've been invited and attended a couple of events, and they're very powerful, very good. What do you think over the past decade or so the impact of the organization has been?
Well, I always say on the board, and when we founded and started this, is it only takes one, right? I mean, this is truly a leader. We all have seasons as leaders. And to me, we all need to have people come alongside. It is, some of the greatest leaders will say when they're nearing the end of their career or their life, they'll say the greatest investment they've ever had is when they leaned in with someone. And what we see happening right now, Gary, is there's, the surveys say 1 out of 2 people don't have a deep relationship that they can point to, or 1 out of 2, 1 out of 3. We're an isolated, disconnected society right now. So what I see is it's had a big impact over the decade, but we've never been more relevant and needed than we are right now, given what we've experienced with the pandemic. At the same time, the greater than 50-year-old generation has never had more of a calling to be more purposeful in what they do. And as we have a generation that now lives longer, we have more mentors than we've ever had as well. So Edge's goal is to connect the need for the emerging leader with people that are, in a mentoring era that can connect. So I say it's been very impactful, but watch out. Much more to come because of the need society has today for it.
Yeah, position for growth. Hey, what's your take, Jeff? And you mentioned that obviously with much more remote work, hybrid work environments, those types of things. I hear different CEOs with different opinions on that and the impact of that. Some want to be more heavily to in-person, others more heavily to remote. What's your take on the whole state of work going forward?
Well, I would say, first of all, what I've learned with lots of transformation over my life is don't try to call the game too fast and come to a conclusion. To me, stay fluid, stay agile, keep progressing. So we believe that absolutely we will never go back like we were. We won't stay like we are. So let's progress through it. So to me, there is need for, and we've identified our workers as, are you a tele or are you flex? There's probably, other than manufacturing and lab people, that they're permanent. Otherwise, there's a lot more flexible. So what does flexible mean? That supervisor, our company creates a culture where, yes, we need you present some of the time, but we also have to have trust in the company to allow some of the flexibility as well. If so, you not only become a magnet for talent and you sell a bigger purpose, but to me, you get much, much higher engagement. So we measure engagement all the way down to 1,000 supervisors to monitor and watch. And I think watch the data, be a student, don't call the game too early, but keep progressing.
Yeah. Jeff, you have really led essentially a reinvention at Elanco. And I think it was recently, Elanco was named a top 20 Change the World company by Fortune. That's quite an honor. I mean, and I would imagine you really like that. What was your reaction when you found out that Elanco indeed was a top 20 Change the World company?
Well, I said at a leadership conference about a year ago, watch out if you have a compelling vision that your company plays in and something that really matters, and you get everyone in your company excited about it. And candidly, I didn't have to do that. The people were already excited about it. The leaders at all levels drove this. Watch out. You will in a good way lose control of your company. And what I'll tell you is that's what's happened in Elanco is people see the context of whether it's growing up on a livestock farm or, being around a veterinarian or valuing pets, seeing this. I mean, this came really from a project that started in Africa with the Gates Foundation to where we've actually in East Africa set up one of the largest projects on animals where there's a dairy processing plant, smallholder farmers creating a sustainable industry in this area. And it's now a business for us. And watch out because we've broken the cycle of hunger in 100 communities around the world. So I'm excited about it, but I would just say it's a credit all to the people of Elanco that they see this as their company, and the world needs Elanco in it for all the reasons that we just talked about, for better nutrition, a better environment, and the power of companionship. So food and companionship, enriching life, founded over 20 years ago that really started this transformation, has never been more real and relevant than it is today. But when you're relevant, I tell people you're now responsible. We must help cool the climate this decade and change kids' anxiety, period.
You mentioned hunger and kids feeding the world. That made me think of Jim Morris, a local, an icon in this community and in so many ways. Talk about Jim Morris and his role in what you do and kind of that bigger picture.
If you talk about edge mentoring, if you talk about the influence of anyone out there listening, I would just say write down 3 names of people that you could impact here at the end of the year with a phone call or a note. And the power of 5 minutes. Jim Morris's 5 minutes. I went to his duck luncheon here this year, as everyone has, and you see that room full of people. There may not be anyone that I've watched create a ripple effect like Jim Morris throughout World Hunger, throughout Indiana. He sat on our advisory committee. And there's a quote I have on my desk at home that says, "Look at everything in the greatest context." And that's one of Jim Morris's famous quotes. And, I would say we wouldn't be where we are today if it wasn't for Jim Morris. Mm-hmm. But I've never seen somebody invest in 5-minute increments or a lunch or a cup of coffee or a note and make more people believe in themselves because he believed in them. Yeah. This state is the greatest blessing, maybe Jim Morris.
Yeah, well said. Jeff, what's next? You've got a lot on your plate as you look to 2022 and maybe a little beyond. What's next for Jeff Simmons and Elanco?
Well, a lot of this is we continue, right? I mean, reinvention has occurred by staying current, relevant, but while doing that, everyone talks about transformation in Elanco. Probably what's been more of our story the last, especially since going independent, is just sheer execution. It is running the drill and doing it really, really well. And so for us, as we're standing up this company and integrating and coming through a pandemic, it's actually, I see a 2022, 2023, where we really start to catch our stride to where we, are not only creating all the systems, we're bringing innovation to the marketplace. We're back real close with our customers. We're much more global than we've ever been. And so that's what I see. And I'll be out in the forefront, as some of our other leaders are, on some of these big issues. Coming out of COP26 and the environment, Elanco is going to play a big role, creating this epicenter for animals out of Indiana. That'll be key. And really bringing some profound, significant innovations to the marketplace are things we'll do. But Elanco's next 24 months is going to be a lot about just disciplined execution to create a cornerstone company for our industry, society, and Indiana.
Jeff Simmons, the president and CEO at Elanco Animal Health, an elite leader, a very passionate leader for his company and also for the state of Indiana. Jeff, it's been a real treat to have you on the podcast this week, and I look forward to seeing you soon.
Thank you, Gary. Thank you.
All right. And thank you for joining us on this edition of the Business and Beyond podcast presented by PNC. It's a weekly conversation with achievers in business, sports, entertainment, and beyond. And you can download all of our episodes and find Indiana Business News 24/7. All you have to do is go to InsideIndianaBusiness.com. Thanks for joining us. I'm Gary Dick. We'll see you next time.